Hey everybody, I'm Marcus Bass with the North Carolina Black Alliance and Advance Carolina, and we're here to wrap up a very solid 2022 year, and thank you for all of your hard work and dedication in following us in what has been one of our largest efforts in mobilizing enthusiastic voters, educating voters, and empowering everybody to make change in their community. The start of 2022 was all about listening. We held community conversations across the state, talking to individuals about what matters most in their hometown. Before we can mobilize people to vote, we had to make sure we understood their issues. And in doing so, we talked to over 500 leaders from various counties that worked with us to complete surveys, were part of our county conversations, and in the end also attended our North Carolina Black Summit, a virtual experience. We made sure that our conversations were focused around those exact same issues with thought leaders, advocacy and policy experts, and elected and appointed officials talking about how to make change in community. We shifted directly from the Black Summit to talk to voters in community with elected leaders as a part of our And Beyond series, focusing on providing fiscal recovery and information about the American Rescue Plan and ways that communities can bridge the gap between the necessary funding that they need to make communities whole after the pandemic. From there, we went straight to wellness. Rooted in wellness across the state, we produced health fairs simultaneously on one Saturday in 10 different parts of this state, bringing together healthcare providers, service experts, and community leaders talking about senior care, talking about Black maternal health. From there, we went to our virtual Environmental Justice Summit, where in the midst of the 40th anniversary of the environmental racism movement, we were joined by leaders from across the state of North Carolina. Our Deputy Director, Lamisha Whittington, was on the front lines celebrating in Warren County at Soul City the birth of the environmental justice movement alongside some of the greats. This statewide summit helped catapult 40 years of the environmental racism movement for an audience of folks that didn't know the history right here in our backyard, and with countless others who have been in the fight to make sure that land justice is just as important and included in the fight for social justice. In these areas, we made sure that we were talking about the issues that matter most before we even began to talk about the ballot. And all of that work, all of that momentum, all of those conversations went directly into building political power. In 2022, our theme was our chance, our choice, our vote. And voters had an opportunity, but first, they had to fight some unsurmountable odds with impending threats to voter engagement by way of the repeal of the Voting Rights Act. Many voters did not have the protections that they needed to cast their vote safely, which is why we employed in every community not just GOTV, not just voter engagement, not just voter education. We did election protection, on the ground voter safety and protection through the launch and continued support of our website, Safe Voter NC. Safe Voter NC was the backdrop for a lot of our election protection work during election season, providing information about what was happening across the state. And there was no way that we could start off talking about going to the polls unless we were going to protect voters at the polls. Our next stop on our Chance, Our Choice, Our Vote campaign was our statewide voting rights convenings, bringing together leaders from across North Carolina with community members to talk about the long narrative, not just of voting rights on a national level, but in the backyard of communities in North Carolina that have been entrenched with elements of white supremacy that has individually harmed the way of life for voters, and connecting that to the policy changes and the direct shifts in strategy that we needed to do to make sure we mobilize voters in 2022. After our statewide voting rights convenings, we opened up community empowerment hubs across the state of North Carolina. In 8 different parts of the state, rural and urban, we were able to stand up physical space in churches and in business storefronts where voters were able to come get information, come get education. In those spaces, we brought to you a team of over 150 organizers, canvassers, and phone bankers, all committed to making sure voters had the information that they needed. On top of that, we held activations in all of our hubs, Biscuits and Balance, where we talked about the importance of voting from an issue-based standpoint, using that information from the beginning of the year and connecting it to what's on the ballot in 2022. From there, we did a Don't Be Scared to Vote initiative where we engaged families on Halloween to make sure that they had the information they needed to vote early, even on Halloween night, the most perfect time to go door to door, the international canvas for door to door. We made sure that voter empowerment was even in that moment. Immediately after that, we went on a historic HBCU Vote Coming tour, Our historically black colleges across North Carolina have an immense amount of power, and we wanted to make sure that during this critical season in October, in as much as homecoming is the most festive time of the year, that's the most important time to encourage people to go vote. At our HBCU campuses, we were able to provide excitement, we were able to provide entertainment, we were able to provide fun and education for voters at these HBCU campuses, letting them know how much power they had in the ballot for the early voting season. Immediately after that, we went into our advanced notice at the polls program, one of our largest poll correspondent programs to date, where at each and every single one of our hubs, we picked specific polling precincts where black residents needed to make sure they had information about how to vote, make sure they were holding line, and we went live broadcasting at all of these locations the entire day of early voting, from the time polls open to the time polls closed, making sure that we were letting voters know what's happening in their backyard and there was still time to go vote. Last but not least, because of these efforts, because of the huge turnout of churches, because of the huge turnout of HBCUs, by the community turning out through our hubs and engagement, we were able to take the lessons that we learned immediately after this election cycle and go straight to Georgia. Working in Georgia with our partners in New Georgia Project and Black Catalyst, we were able to take 15 of our team members down for 6 days to knock on over 2,000 doors, talking to voters in the midst of Christmas season, why it's important that they held the line for democracy and made sure that the voter turnout that needed to happen to make history made history. All of this power is not just about building North Carolina, it's about a Southern strategy. And working together across all of these state lines, we can build that true power that we need to push our country forward. We could not have done this. All of this work is impossible without the commitment and dedication of our board of directors, working hard alongside our committed core team of coordinators, fellows, volunteers, and of course the support of foundations, individual donors, philanthropists, people giving their time, talent, and treasure in every single way. And we look forward to bringing you more content, more activation, more education, more organizing in 2023. We'll see you on the other side of the calendar, and thank you for being with us in Advanced Carolina and North Carolina Black Alliance.